I want to reach a large audience, as everybody does. But the reason why I want to reach a large audience isn't for clicks, views, clout, nothing. I want to be able to tell each person who's listening, we do this every day. First of every month, we do this. And we say on the show, all right, today, you go on Google and you punch in, is there an election I can vote in? Put your zip code in this month. This way you never miss an election. Oh, I didn't know there was a special election. Why? Well, maybe your county GOP didn't reach out. Maybe the candidates didn't reach out, but you can still pick up the slack with a 2-minute Google search 12 times a year, once a month, 2 minutes, 12 times. It is not even an episode of your favorite TV show.
Well, welcome back to another episode of the Rutherford County GOP podcast. We are excited to be joined by Rutherford County resident Shawn Farash, who many of you know for his viral impersonations of Donald J. Trump and his sharp political commentary and really his unique ability to blend humor with conviction. And so Shawn's built a national following by saying what he believes, often in places where it's not easy, and doing it in a way that actually connects with people. And so, we here in Rutherford County are really proud that you and your family call, Rutherford County home and Tennessee your home. And we're excited to have you on the podcast today.
Well, we're excited. First of all, we're excited to be in Tennessee. I'm very excited to be in Tennessee because I came from New York. And so that's like, I was actually talking to somebody today. He reached out and I was talking to him about, what he's doing in New York and everything. And, Bruce Blakeman's running for governor. He's somebody I'm very familiar with. When he was running for county executive in 2021, one of the first campaign speeches I've ever seen him make was on the bed of my pickup truck at a rally we were throwing with our grassroots group. He comes up, I'm Bruce Blakeman. I'm running for Nassau County executive. And I'm like, great. I'm thinking, that's pretty much it's a purple, leans blue county. But hey, we give him a shot. And he done a great job in that county with education. That's kind of what got him over the finish line. And he pushed back against the state. He was the only county executive in the state that pushed back against the COVID tyranny. And it got a lot of people on his team, on his side.
Well, Ross and I were actually talking about this before you showed up, but what made you pick Tennessee? Because I can imagine at the stage in your life where you were looking to get out of New York, that you could have gone anywhere in the entire country. And so you picked Tennessee. Why?
Well, we were at an election night watch party, Clay and Buck, the radio show. Brennan and I were there. And, we had basically said after the Zeldin election in 2022, we were going to leave. We were going to be out. But especially if he lost, we were getting out quick, because Kathy Hochul taking over 4 more years. And we were in Nashville. And Brennan said, what do you think about Tennessee? Because we were thinking we might go down to Florida. Yeah. That's where our mom's at. And, we were going to head down there. And I said, Tennessee is fine with me. It's not as hot as Florida. And they both have no state income tax. Let's do it. So we came back in a couple of weeks after that and started looking for apartments and places to go. We wound up in Donaldson.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't realize that's not where you wanted to wind up. So, sitting in Donaldson for, I don't know, what was it, a couple months. And my truck got broken into, windows got busted in. It was great. It was wonderful.
Oh, my goodness.
The cops came in and said, because it looks like there might be firearms in your truck. This is a toolbox on it, Trump stickers all over the thing. You could tell a conservative drives. Oh, well, there's no guns in there. So they broke into my toolbox another time after that. It was great. But we said, then we had gunshots outside the apartment.
And that was probably, yeah.
I wake up and I hear ba, 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 and then I hear da, 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 and I'm like, oh, great. People are shooting at each other. So I tell Brennan, get down, we're down. It wasn't that close, but I didn't really know how much closer they were going to get. Ironically, that was on the morning of October 7th. So I'm sitting on the couch, I flip up social media, I see Israel's under attack, and I go, well, those gunshots aren't as bad now, put it in perspective a little bit. But we said at that point, we were like, we should probably maybe move out of the Nashville area. So we wound up down in Spring Hill, Maury County, portion of Spring Hill for a year, which was quieter, felt more like Tennessee and less like New York.
Yeah.
And then after a year there, we found a nice home in the Christiana area of Rutherford County. And we've been there since February of 2025. So
wow. So not terribly long. I mean, since I have been involved in the party, you and Brennan have been super involved.
Yeah.
I've seen you speak at the Republican Women's Christmas
that was
party.
such a fun night.
Yeah.
That was such a fun time.
You just did the school board debate here at the GOP headquarters where
Also
we're
a
at
fun
tonight.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's props on you for diving in and getting involved.
Well, I mean, I actually think we took too long, to be honest with you. I would have, if I could have done it over again, we would have gotten involved a little bit more last year. We first came down to a YR meeting in September, actually September 9th, the day before Charlie Kirk was assassinated, Tuesday night. And I was like, wow, it took us a little longer to get, but we had to get everything settled in the House. I believe in 100% of what I was in New York was just dive in, get involved everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, not for the sake of doing so, but for the sake of immersing yourself, knowing what's happening.
Yeah.
I say it all the time to people that, you know, your federal elections, your president, we all excited to go vote in presidential election, but we should actually be more excited to vote in local elections because they have more of a say over what goes on.
Yeah.
You have a bad book in your school, you can write as many letters as you want to Trump. He can't do anything about it.
That's right.
Your school board can. And yet those are the elections that nobody participates in because they either don't care or they don't know. And it's like, no, we've got to be involved, you know? And so we tried to be involved as quick as we could. So now we're in and it's fun to see what's going on. And like talking about just before we started, the special session may be coming soon to redraw these maps. And it's nice to kind of have our bearings a little bit on what's going on in Tennessee.
So what's your story? So how did you, I mean, you have a career now in politics, essentially, in comedy as well. What's your story? How did you get interested in politics? How did that begin?
I've always been interested in politics ever since 2000, the 2000 election, Bush Gore and hanging Chads and all. I was young. I was in 5th grade or so and didn't know what was going on, but I was like, oh, cool, stats. Like someone has more points. It was like sports. I'm a sports guy. And I've always been a big fan of sports. So get through, you know, high school and liberal education, right? I loved Obama in high school. He was my guy. I loved him. I was bringing the coffee cups around. Obama, he's great. Hope and change, because it sounds good, you know, 18 years old, hope and change.
Who doesn't want hope and change?
He's the next Kennedy. It's great, you know. And then his first term, you know, starts rolling and you know, we killed bin Laden. It was great. But, and that happened on my birthday. It was awesome. I was like, great birthday gift, Obama. We killed bin Laden. It was wonderful. But I didn't love what I was hearing from him. And my dad watched a lot of Bill O'Reilly. And he got me Pinheads and Patriots, the book. Mm-hmm. And I start reading it. I'm in college at this time. And I'm trying to figure out what my minor is going to be. I knew my major was going to be radio. I wanted to do sports radio. I loved baseball, football, hockey. Talking sports was great. And but I'm reading Pinheads and Patriots. And I'm starting to get crap from other students in the class to see it's Bill O'Reilly. And I'm like, what's the problem? This is a lighthearted book. You sound like the pinhead in the book, right? Like you don't sound like the pinhead. And then I had one conservative professor who I still thought I was a liberal at the time. And I was like, I'm gonna fact check this guy. And every time I tried to fact check him, he was right. And I was like, this is an issue. Like, I believe in everything. Apparently, I believe in lies. This is not good. So started to shift, and Romney was running in 2012, fiscal cliff. You know, the Bush tax cuts were set to expire. We were in a recession. And the professor kept saying, you cannot raise taxes in a recession. It's gonna be a disaster. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, why would that be a disaster? And then I said, oh, well, a recession, you know, people don't have jobs, now you got to pay more in taxes, going to have less. That's a problem. And then I realized that was part of the Democrats' platform. It was like, taxes, tax and spend. And I said, I don't like taxes. I was in one of my radio classes, and we did a feature. We had Hofstra University, was where I went to school. They hosted one of the debates. Yeah. And we had to do a radio feature. I was going to run on the campus radio station about the election. And so I did it on the fiscal cliff. And I'm like, this is gonna be funny because I'm gonna see a lot of the class was, you know, leaning left. And the professor, forget it, he was liberal, like one of these typical university types. So I interviewed on campus 3 professors. I interviewed the conservative one who basically red-pilled me, right? A centrist who was really someone who studied the presidency, but not necessarily was a left or right. She leaned to the left. And then someone who was like very big into the EU. So I used her for global politics, and she was left-leaning, very much so left-leaning. So I had a representative of each, Republican, independent, lean left, and then a leftist who wasn't like a socialist at that time, but she was a leftist, a liberal. And I put all this, and he hears the rough draft, and the conservative professor starts talking about how we can't raise taxes in a recession. He goes, you got to take that out. I said, why? It's the truth. I'm not taking that out. He goes, it's biased. I said, you didn't say it was biased when the other two were talking. Why is it biased when he's talking? He says, that can't be in the project. I said, let me tell you something. If there's an issue with production value, if there's an issue with my cuts and my edits, and you want to take points off of that, that's fine. That's your job. If I feel like you're taking any sort of points off of my grade because I had somebody from each side in this, I will get you fired. I didn't know how to get him fired, but I said that. Yeah. I got an A because he didn't want to screw around. But see, because I'm spiteful, I said, I know he's scared and he doesn't want an issue. So I signed off the piece with the fiscal cliff and I put a slant on that piece. I put a slant on, this is going to be bad if Obama wins and we go off this fiscal cliff, your taxes are going to go up. So I signed off the piece with fingers crossed, Shawn Farash, WRHU. And the class was petrified after they heard it because they understand in their paychecks what the taxes were. And they didn't want to see their income go down, their taxes go up. And he was sweating bullets the whole time. Because he knew he lost the narrative. Because now everybody doesn't want to vote for Obama in that class because taxes are going to go up. And it was just, I loved it. It was great. My minor was political science. I decided that, 2 years in and went with that. And eventually decided, worrying about the Jets, and they always lose, and worrying about, baseball, hockey, and all this is fine.
Well, thankfully, you came to Nashville because,
the Titans.
Continue losing.
We continue
fine. But I say, every time the Jets lose, my taxes don't go up. But every time Republicans do, my taxes go up. So maybe we should focus our energy on things that matter versus a game. I love sports. I'll chop it up with anybody about sports. But then I started listening to a little bit of Levin and just paying more attention, watching the news. But it was really the 2016 cycle that got me super involved. I was a Rand Paul guy when he was running 2016. I had his book. I read it. I thought it was great, Taking a Stand. And he dropped out early. And I didn't really know what I was going to do. I thought, is Trump serious? Is he not serious? Is he making a mockery of it? Is this publicity? He's a publicity guy. I didn't really dislike him. I just didn't know if he really meant it.
Yeah.
And he kept going and going and going. He's got this popularity, and he gets in that debate with Hillary Clinton. You'd be in jail, and he's talking to her the way I would want to talk to her. And he's a New Yorker from Queens, and I'm a New Yorker from Long Island, and nobody. And I'm like, this guy. All right, that's it. Let's get on. Get on board. By that time, he was the nominee, so I was voting for him anyway. But that's when I got really excited about him. Started listening to more conservative content. The podcast industry was not as big as it is now. So I turned on Dan Bongino one time in 2018, sitting in traffic to try and distract myself from traffic. I hate traffic. And I said, this guy's great. He's entertaining. He sounds like he's all about it. I see him on Fox. One of the things he says all the time is talk is cheap, the do matters. And I was like, man, I want to do something. So for 2 years, I was thinking, what can I do? Then COVID happened. And New York was hungry for pushback against Cuomo. And that's where, sitting in a paint store one day, I said, you know what? I think we're going to do we'll just do one of these drives with the flags. Instead of a birthday parade, we'll just put a little flag up. And it turned into a huge thing. And I started podcasting at that point with the organization that we'd started to keep everybody in tune with what was going on. We hosted our podcast on an audio platform off of Facebook just in case we got banned because we had several accounts shut down. That turned into getting that show picked up by the network I'm currently with, which is LFA TV on Rumble. And we're still doing that, filling in on radio all over the place. But that's basically it. It was, I don't want to say out of nowhere. I've always been interested in politics, but that sequence of events from 2020, COVID, to now has been one thing after another. And it's been great. I got to meet a lot of people. I met the president twice, Trump. We've gotten to go to a ton of events and be involved in so many different processes, have a better understanding on how things are. So when people ask the question of what to do or how do we get involved and all that, we have the answers. And it's simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. That's the best part.
So tell us a little bit about, so obviously one of the things you're most known for is your impersonations of President Trump. So how did that, for those that don't know, how did that ever even get started?
So I was selling DirecTV. I was selling, for a third party and face-to-face. on Long Island, which was, I felt it go in red in the 2016 election cycle. And anytime I had a customer ask me, if I switch, am I going to be able to keep Fox News? I knew it's Republican. So I could joke with them, right?
Yeah.
And so I would just break it out in the middle of the sales pitch. I would never take that away from you. We'd never do that. And they're like, what? So they would, great relationship with the customer, make the deal, right? Nobody makes deals like I do either. It works. It worked very well. And so I was able to do that and start to work on it. And I kept using it in sales. And I left it to DirecTV, went to Sherwin-Williams. I was selling paint. Contractors were all blue-collar guys. They loved it. It was great. But really, it wasn't until this grassroots movement started in New York. We were knocking on doors to try and get a candidate on the ballot in New York City Council. I think District 19. Her name's Vicky Palladino. She's always on Fox. We were getting petitions to get her on the primary ballot, going door to door. It was cold. It was March. It was New York City. And a friend of mine goes, that Trump thing, we were joking around. You got to do that on TikTok. You really should go on TikTok. And I said, I don't want to do that. It's China. They're going to spy. It's China. He goes, no, you got to do it. You'll go viral. You'll get eyeballs to the movement. It'll be great. So I started doing it there. And it, sure enough, it went viral there almost instantly. And it helped our movement. It helped me. I met my wife on TikTok because of one of my videos, right? So it was, that was definitely something. But that's how it started. It started just as a sales tool, just something funny in a sales pitch, and it turned into what I'm doing now, which is just, we're just having so much fun with it. Radio stations and ads and all sorts of good stuff.
So you said you've met with President Trump a couple times.
Yeah.
Has the impersonations come up? How did that discussion go?
The first time I met him, we were at Bedminster, New Jersey. We were there for a January 6th fundraiser for a group called Patriot Freedom Project. They were the only Trump-endorsed J6 Foundation. We didn't know if he was going to be there, but the organizer is a friend. We went. Ed Martin, everybody knows, he was on the board of that organization for a little while before he took the job in D.C. But Trump showed up and he gave a few remarks to the crowd. And before he left the stage, this wasn't supposed to happen, the founder and president of the Patriot Freedom Project stopped him and said, wait, that guy has something to say to you. And I was like, oh, no. So I go up on the stage and I did a little, bit. I said, Mr. President, we're going to help you win in a landslide worse than Chris Christie after Taco Bell. The whole room's laughing. He laughed, shook my hand. I made a poop joke to the president first time I met him. I mean, who else can say that?
Yeah.
Right? First time I met the president, I made a poop joke about Chris Christie. That was great. 2 days later, he got his mugshot taken in Georgia. So, but that was the first time I met him. And so it was great. I had a handshake and the whole room was laughing. Ed Martin's cracking up behind. But Secret Service, I'll tell you what, was not very happy that some rando went on the stage.
Pulled up on stage.
The woman who orchestrated that got chewed out that night. She said, Secret Service is mad. You know who it was that was at the night? Sean Curran was the guy there in the picture of me shaking Trump's hand. You could see him staring a hole through my soul on that stage, making sure that I'm not trying anything funny. Of course I wasn't, but they don't know. I wasn't screened.
Sure.
Yeah.
But now it's, the head of Secret Service. He was the one at Butler with the sunglasses, but it's just crazy. But that was the first time I met him. So I could say the first time I met Trump, I made a poop joke about Chris Christie.
So he just re-shared some of your comments, hasn't he?
Yes. He was crazy is we went up to Detroit last September for the Trump-Kamala debate. And Newsmax wanted to know if I wanted to jump on Carl Higby's show. And I was like, I'll be available. I'll be in a hotel room, but I'll be available. So I jumped on and, at that point, it was when the Kamala Harris platform came out and everything was Biden's that just put it on her plan from the DNC. And I said, that's not even her plan. It's everything that she has was Joe Biden's. It's not even hers. Nothing about her is real. Trump was watching that apparently because they took that clip of me on Newsmax and put it in a campaign ad. I had no idea. But last October we had the government shutdown. And remember, there was a couple of memes early in the shutdown with the sombreros, right? Mm-hmm. They put Hakeem Jeffries in a sombrero and they put, Schumer in a sombrero because they were, the healthcare for illegals. Yeah. And then Jeffries goes on a media tour the next day. This is racist. This is terrible. This is this. And so we're like, okay, good. More sombreros because you're mad about it. So I wasn't going to do the sombrero thing, but I have one. When my wife moved up from Florida, we moved her up from Florida. We stopped at south of the border in the Carolinas, right? And there's that big old guy in the sombrero, Pedro. So I made one and said, well, we love Pedro, so I'm a sombrero.
All right, so we've got to insert that clip because that's going to be awesome.
Hola, mi fellow Americanos y bienvenidos al cierre de Schumer. That means welcome to the Schumer shutdown. We call it the Schumer siesta, right? It's the Schumer siesta. He put the government on siesta, crying Chuck. And El Hakimo Jefe Jeffries, we used to call him Dollar Store Obama, till we realized he's worth far less than $1. But they put the government on siesta to give illegal aliens your health care. We're not going to let it happen. I looked at both of them. I said, we're not going to let it happen. It's no bueno. I said, it's no bueno. They begged me. They said, but senor, por favor, please give illegal aliens the health care. I said, we're not going to do it. We're never going to do it. It's not going to happen. And they're also very upset about our big, beautiful sombreros. You look at them. These are the greatest sombreros the world has ever seen. We really have the best sombreros, and everybody wants one except Crying Chuck and El Hakimo Jefe Jeffries. They don't want one, but they're going to wear one when all is said and done. We're going to end the siesta. We're going to reopen the government, and we will not give in to the demands of Chuck and El Jefe. We're not going to do that. Thank you. God bless you. Dios lo bendiga, and God bless America. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
So I have the sombrero. I have a sombrero I can use. I've used it a couple times, and we did like a little bit like Spanish or President Trump, like Cinco de Porto, which is great. But I said, I'm going to do a sombrero. I'll ride the trend. So I do the sombrero. I start speaking in Spanish. It's the Schumer siesta and Hakeem Jeffries, this whole thing. And we go through it. And it goes wild that morning because it was the trend, the sombrero trend. And then like the next day, Dan Scavino shared it. I come running out of this home studio I have. I said, Brennan, Dan Scavino just shared it. She goes, who's Dan Scavino? I said, this Trump right-hand guy. Yeah. I think he's going to share it. And then like 30 minutes later, he put it on Truth, and then they put it on X. And it was just nuts. It was me in a sombrero doing Trump's voice with a poncho on, ragging on Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer. That's what he shares. And it was just hysterical. And now I think that'll live forever. It's just crazy. Like the president of the United States shared me in a sombrero. What a dope. Right? I'm saying, and he was with J.D. Vance at dinner that night. I just wonder if he was sitting there going, get a load of this guy. Yeah. What did you see this guy? So that was a fun time when that happened. But he has shared that, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, so you were talking earlier about Dan Bongino kind of being a guy that you listen to a lot, and he's been sharing some of your stuff as well.
Yep.
And you have done some fill-ins for him, haven't you?
That's right.
How did that relationship? How did you guys connect there? Because go from a guy that you're a fan of his to developing that relationship, and tell those stories.
Yeah, that full circle story is a fun story. So I've always been a fan of Bongino, and he had a book signing on Long Island. I went to the book signing. He had no idea who I was. That was, it was before COVID. Yeah. Because you couldn't do book signings in COVID. But, met him there. It was great. And I thought, that's cool. I met him. He'll forget, meeting me. It's fine. But I'll always remember this. I met Dan Bongino. It was awesome. 2020 rolls around doing the Trump thing. We get into 2022. And I realized that his producer, Jim, on the radio, was following me on Truth Social. So I said, we were planning, because it was right after that FBI raid of Mar-a-Lago. And we were planning this huge protest against the raid. And, it was primary season, so we were getting candidates up there on Long Island. I said, what's going to be cool? I'm going to follow him back on X. I didn't realize he had an X account. I followed, or Twitter at the time, Jim Verdi. Followed him back. And I was saying, my thing was, when we get the rally and all this stuff, I'll take pictures, I'll send it. And, Dan don't like that. It's activism. It's New York. He grew up in New York. Well, I want to say maybe a few hours after I followed Jim back, I get a message from him. Hey, can you help me out on a project? Sure. So we were recording a bit for Dan's radio show. Well, that developed into a really good relationship that I had with Jim, his producer. And we were doing bits together, all this, and it was great. And then Dan, every now and then would ask Jim for me to do a bit for their show. And so that's how that relationship started to get cultivated. Dan Bongino came up to a fundraiser for Lee Zeldin in 2022. And we met him there again. And, I was like, hey, I'm the guy who's been doing Trump for you. What? That's you? It's great. He was like almost starstruck in a way, which is kind of, for me, that's weird. I'm like, I miss the dude, stop, you know? And he's the same way. He's like, I'm just a guy, stop. But that was where that relationship, started. And then he followed me on social media a little while after, because I kept doing stuff with him and Jim, and I've always been a supporter and, tweeting at him and all this. Then he joins the FBI, right, in 2025. And I'm realistic. I didn't expect him to walk in, deputy director of the FBI, and then put the whole world in handcuffs. But there were some people on the internet who did. And I said, this is ridiculous. Justice moves slow, injustice moves quick, okay? We don't want to be the party of injustice and weaponized government and all this stuff. Just let him work. Oh, you're covering from, he's paying you. I said, he's paying me. I never got a dime from him. But it was through his producer, Jim, and really the last year, while he was in the FBI, not because I'm sitting there defending him, but because I wasn't one of the people who started crapping on him right after day one. He reached out personally a few times and said thank you and all of this. And I got to know their team. I filled in on for Vince Colonnese for his show a few times. And then, Dan was like, hey, we want to use you more if you're cool with that. I said, am I cool with that? I'm involved the way I am in this movement because of this show. If you're telling me I get to sit in your chair and fill in for you, it's like dream come true type stuff. Yeah. And that's what happened. So we have a good relationship with that team. They're great people over there. The whole team over there, their producers are great. Vince is great. Haley's great. Justin and all those guys. Dan's awesome. Jim's great. So that whole team is great. But that's how that relationship has really, blossomed. And I'm extremely grateful for it, because I think Dan is one of the rare guys in the space who isn't someone who just talks behind a microphone. He's not the activist that he was anymore, but there's obviously reasons for that. He's a high profile guy. He gets death threats, right? He has, especially what just happened to Charlie. So it's tough. But I like the fact that he prioritizes doing things. He has what's called the 10, 10, and 10 rule, where you go to the polls, make sure you send 10 texts first, get 10 people to the polls, bring people out. It's all about staying engaged and staying active and local, and, use that to build up federal. And I said, this is the type of guy that I think the movement needs, more of that. And if I can emulate that and be a force multiplier for that message, that's my goal. And so I guess, he's obviously happy with it, and it's worked well for us. I just want to see some results now come November. That's the big thing. I want to see results.
Which, as we were talking and you alluded to this, obviously could be an interesting few weeks and months if several of these states start picking up and redrawing congressional maps, which very well may happen here in the next week or two in Tennessee, which would be something.
I saw that. I was excited to see that Tennessee is going to lead from the front on this. What DeSantis did in Florida. And that guy is an unbelievable executive.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, think, when he wants something passed in that state legislature, it gets done.
Yeah.
Fast. Virginia happened, what was it? It was, last week?
Yeah.
Right?
A couple weeks
It was the 21st.
It was Reagan Day, our Reagan Day.
Yeah.
It was
passed
that night.
Yeah, it passed that night. I remember watching the results,
Yep.
And then Scott Golden came up and gave us all the bad news, right? It passed, unfortunately. But it passed by a slim margin, which shows you that there are issues that will motivate people to come out. We just got to lean into them.
Yep.
I was happy to see that DeSantis waited. Now, that case in Virginia might not go through, because that Virginia Supreme Court is sitting there going, I don't know about this. The fact that they didn't lift the injunction tells me, read the tea leaves, that they think there's a chance that they don't grant that appeal. Jay Jones, that appeal, if you read Jay Jones' appeal, it's bad. It's written horribly and it's not good. But DeSantis does what he does in Florida. Obviously, Abbott did what he did in Texas. And then the Supreme Court, that Voting Rights Act decision, we've been tracking since October.
Yeah.
When that came out, we were live. My show was live. And a friend of mine who streams right before me came in the chat. Brennan tells me in the chat, goes, Misfit's telling you that the Supreme Court just blocked LA's maps. I'm like, LA? Los Angeles? What is the Supreme Court do? Oh, it's Louisiana. It's the Voting Rights Act. I started hitting my air horn, but we were throwing a party because it was such a consequential ruling. And I'm happy to see the whole argument about race finally go this way, where it's like, okay, you want to give a minority group representation, but you're in a way segregating them in their own district. That's not good. It's violation of equal protection, which is what the court found. And there have been a bunch of cases that basically said the Constitution is colorblind. You can't do that. Georgia, I think Brian Kemp said he's not going to redraw his maps. Fine, whatever. It sounds like we're going to be able to squeeze a seat out of Tennessee. You're going to get one out of Louisiana. You got 4 coming out of Florida. Alabama's now looking at doing the same thing. And, before these midterms, if you get a few out of that, that's cool. But afterwards, you got 2 things working in our favor. The redistricting thing. I don't want to hear a peep from the Democrats. You tell me what New England looks like. Look what they just did in Virginia.
Yeah.
But look at New England, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island. Around 40% Republican on average. 0 seats. Okay? So if you're not going to call out the nonsense that you're doing up there, and in California and in Illinois, with some of these districts look like spaghetti, right? Then don't tell me what's going on in the southern states is a problem. Oh, it's Jim Crow. Well, you're the party of Jim Crow, so you would kind of know, right? But you have the redistricting, which could pull up to 19 seats, which is a 38-seat swing, and 2030 census. The Supreme Court is hearing a case about whether or not illegals can be counted in the census. Obviously, they shouldn't. Illegals are not allowed to vote. Therefore, they're not really constituents, right? Because they're not paying into the system. They should not be counted in the census. The only reason the Democrats want them counted in the census because you have hundreds of thousands of people like us who move out of New York, get replaced by somebody else who's counted in the population, not necessarily a taxpayer, but they're counted in the population for the House. If they are not counted in this, I believe the Supreme Court's going to say you can't count them in the census because it is used to determine congressional representative allocations. Then the 2030 census is going to also shift not just the House of Representatives, but when a state loses a House seat, they lose an electoral vote. And so there's a scenario where with this population outflow, where the Democrats could actually sweep, if it's as dramatic as it is with the population shifts, there's a scenario where the Democrats can sweep the swing states and still lose the general election because of how many people are moving and how many may move between now and 2030.
Yeah, I mean, there's the general consensus is that we here in Tennessee will get at least one.
I think so.
We were really close. I mean, like less than 100,000 from getting one in the 22 census.
Well, if the amount of apartments going up in Murfreesboro tells you how many people are moving into Tennessee, we're going to get a seat. We're going to get a new seat. We're going to get an electoral vote. And
which most of it's concentrated in Middle Tennessee.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
The thought is it'll be another district here in the, Murfreesboro, Nashville area, which would be really interesting.
It'd be interesting.
And that's not far away.
That may be the first positive comment I've heard about apartment growth in Murfreesboro.
Right? You look at that, and I was talking about that, this morning. You look at that, you look at the redistricting, how much juice we can squeeze out of that lemon, and the census in 4 years, only 4 years away, the census. And if we get our sugar honey iced tea together and stay engaged and message properly and speak to common sense issues, which we've done, 2024, common sense issues. Men should not be in women's sports. That's common sense. That's not even a hard thing. You don't even have to, there's no focus group that's going to come up with that. That's just something that you would say at the dinner table. This is ridiculous what happened at the Olympics. This is ridiculous what happened in volleyball, in the swimming pool. 2030, new census, new allocation, redistricting. Those 3 things, put those together, and a Republican Party that's reaching the common person, which it is now, right? Democrats are way out of touch. You're talking about potentially in the House, at least, decades of control. Yeah. And it's going to force, one of 2 things is going to happen. It's either going to force the Democrats to become a perennial minority party, or it's going to bring them back to the center. Because they can't win on these radical left issues in the general election or in midterm elections and congressional elections, because there's just not enough opportunity for them to do that. Now they have seats that it's a shoe-in because it's a minority district. Not anymore. Yeah. So I'm excited about it.
Well, you have certainly made your mark with your Trump impersonations. As Trump wraps up his last term in office, what's the future? Are you planning on just focusing on your on your media and doing what you're doing now? Or what do you see the future looking like for you?
I'd like to keep having fun, whether it's, whether Trump's in office, out of office, whatever. I'd like to keep, doing some fun content. I'll maybe figure out a new thing to do when he's out. Who knows? But I want to focus on, my goal is to do essentially what Bungee
I don't
does.
see Trump just walking away and being gone forever.
No.
Now he'll do some stuff, I'm sure, on the side, have some fun. But my goal is to continue to build the platform and then use it to energize voters and get them out. That's it. It's very simple. I want to reach a large audience, as everybody does. But the reason why I want to reach a large audience isn't for clicks, views, clout, nothing. I want to be able to tell each person who's listening, we do this every day. First of every month, we do this. And we say on the show, all right, today, you go on Google and you punch in, is there an election I can vote in? Put your zip code in this month. This way you never miss an election. Oh, I didn't know there was a special election. Why? Well, maybe your county GOP didn't reach out. Maybe the candidates didn't reach out. But you can still pick up the slack with a 2-minute Google search 12 times a year, once a month, 2 minutes, 12 times. It is not even an episode of your favorite TV show, right?
That's right.
Over the course of a year. So that's my goal, is continue to spread that message. I think a lot of voters will like.
Yeah.
And the reason why I want a large footprint, again, isn't so that I can sit there and say, look at all this money, look at this house I'm buying and this car and all this material. I want wins. That's what I want. I'm tired of losing. I'm a Jet fan. I lose a lot. I'm a Texas Rangers baseball fan. Aside from 2023, we lose a lot. And unfortunately, the Republican Party of old has been a party that gets in its own way. And we don't have to be. We can energize, we can make it fun. What we did in New York is something that people, wow, you did that in New York? Well, we made it fun. We had cookouts in train station parking lots and then we went door knocking. That's what we did. And it worked. We beat the teachers' unions. They spent a ton of money on school board, tons of money, and they got beat by a ragtag group of grassroots activists who tailgated before going door knocking. Come on.
That's good.
Right? So there you go.
Be.
That's it. I mean, and it felt good, to the point where they showed up at my job and left a note on my windshield. But we still won. I don't care. Leave all the notes you want. They wrote, I'm watching you. Enjoy the show.
Yeah.
You're
Keep
losing
watching.
is what you're doing. Keep watching. And then, of course, because we beat the teachers unions in 21, the SPLC designated us as an anti-government group in 22. Yeah. So anti-government, even though we got people elected into every level of office. It's great.
Well, and I love your emphasis and your passion for local politics, because like you articulated at the beginning of this episode, it's so flashy to get involved in the presidential campaign and even the gubernatorial and U.S. Senate campaigns, and especially as like young Republicans, because you want to meet those people and they're almost like stars if you really love politics.
Yeah.
And for me, the more I have gotten involved and had the opportunity to serve in Governor Lee's office, and even there, just seeing the impact that your county mayor, your sheriffs, your school boards, your city council, your county commission, like those people affect your daily life.
Mm-hmm.
Not the president, not the U.S. senator, not the congressman, or even the governor. Like the people that are at the courthouses and city halls are who really affect your daily life.
And that's been my point ever since on Long Island, where we were like, why you go, school board, why does it matter so much? I said, well, again, if something troubling happens in your school, you can tell the president. What's he going to do? He doesn't even have the authority to get involved. Yeah. All right, maybe the Department of Education can do something. By the time that happens, your kid's going to graduate. Yeah. Right? Government moves slow. But if you're involved locally and you go to your school board meeting and you bring up, and we were pesky. There were school board meetings where they intentionally left the public speaking portion of it till the end and did a long budget presentation that took 2 hours. And I said, that's fine. These parents are staying until midnight. And if you want to do this midnight thing, then we're going to use every second of our 3 minutes and you're going to stay till 1 a.m. And we did that a couple of times with the group of parents. And the board members were not happy. I said, but you're the ones who did it. You could have put public portion at the beginning, but you didn't because you thought they were going to leave. They weren't going to leave because they don't want these books in the school's library, period. And they're going to let themselves be heard. And it worked. Oh, you're banning books. No one's banning books. You can go get the book. It has no place in a school. Yeah. These books like Gender Queer and all of this nonsense with like kind of soft pornographic image. What is it doing in a school, right? I was in one of the high schools on Long Island, Manhasset School District was the name of it. A middle school, sorry, not a high school. during one of these meetings where they were making the parents wait till the end again. Long thing. I had to go to the bathroom. So I went out. I see in a middle school, so you're talking about 12, 13, 14 years old, posters about a gender transition coach coming to the school. It's a middle school. And I go, well, that's a problem. So I took a picture of it the following morning. We did our morning podcast and I just called it right out. I said, well, because the school board decided they were going to keep the parents there for 4 hours and I had to go to the bathroom as I often do, I saw this and I said, this is not a good thing. And I made a comment, that it's not about the LGB, but the T issue is really having a problem with these kids. And state senator grabbed that and then cited the SPLC's listing and then compared me to Timothy McVeigh. Isn't that nice? She lost her seat. I said, okay, cool. Anna Kaplan. We're now going to specifically make sure that we're involved door knocking for your opponent. Lost her seat. So, and we were big into accountability there. But local politics, right? State level, county level. I had no idea there was anything called a library board. Somebody reached out to me and said, there's a library board election in 2 weeks. Can you get involved? I said, what on earth is a library board? Like it's like a school board, but for the library. I said, oh, so like if there's an issue with books and yeah. So we met with these candidates, loved them, got involved. And we got so many people to vote in this election, they ran out of ballots.
Wow.
And we won again. So, and these were education, the COVID stuff, the vaccine mandates were a big one back there, but really stuff revolving around the well-being of their children, motivated parents to get involved. And unfortunately, I feel like there's a little bit of, we're kind of leaving the parents behind a little bit. They're a huge part of what we accomplished on Long Island. Bruce Blakeman, the county executive of Nassau County, who's now running for governor, won on that education wave. Glenn Youngkin in Virginia won on an education wave. Many people who brought the Moms for Liberty kind of groups in, those parental rights groups in, won, because those folks are motivated. Yeah. And when those Republican candidates on Long Island leaned into those talking points for the first time in their political career, the amount of boost they got at the polls, fundraising, and just support, that's something they'd never seen before.
That's really fascinating to hear you talk about education like that because, it is the future, our next generation. 15 years from now, those are the kids that are going to be, applying for jobs, leading our next elected officials, all those things. And, I don't think it can be stated enough how important that is to get involved because that is your future. Mm-hmm. And, that's such a key point. And I mean, thank you for stepping up. I can't tell you how many times, as a real estate developer, having investors, one of the first things they look at before they invest in the community is how's the educational system, because they look at that as the lifeblood of the community. Mm-hmm. And, when you look at it from a county budget standpoint, 70% of our county budget goes to the schools. Yeah. That is a huge amount of our tax dollars that are going where they're going. So thank you for standing up for those things. Why don't we wrap up with some rapid fire questions?
Yes, do it.
Do you have anything else before we wrap it up?
Let's do it.
Okay. We haven't done this very often. Matt and I have talked about this a little bit, so we'll see how it goes. So rapid fire questions. Let's see how we go. Who's your biggest influence?
Dan Bongino.
Okay. One piece of advice for young conservatives.
Get involved at any level. Find a candidate, even if they're not the top candidate in the race, that you are passionate about, and join that campaign.
Okay. Tennessee or Vanderbilt?
Tennessee.
Nice. What's your favorite?
Right answer.
What's your favorite thing about Tennessee?
No state income tax.
Perfect.
Clear as day.
No state income very tax. Good.
Yeah.
All right. Final question. If people want to follow you on social media, how do they do it?
So X is my main platform. I do cause a lot of trouble on that platform. I get into a couple of, back and forth, but it's at Shawn, SHAWN _ Farash, FARASH. I'm a lot less intense on Facebook. So you can search for me. I don't use it as much. So you can follow me there too. Shawn Farash is the page. You'll see there's a 286,000 follower page. So you can go ahead and jump on there. I post a lot of all my Trump videos go there. If you want to just be there for the fun and not the fights that I get into, brawls on some social media platforms. Facebook, X, Instagram, same deal. Truth Social, same deal. You can find. No, there's nobody in the country with this name. It's not like I'm John Smith. How am I going to find it? Shawn Farash, ShawnFarash. FarashMedia.com is the website.
Very good.
Yep.
Well, as concerned as so many people are about all the immigration to our state, it's a pleasure to have you in Tennessee.
It's funny because when we were moving here, I posted, I said, this is my last day in New York. I'm moving to Tennessee. And I had so many people on X who knew me already. Were like, oh, this is great. Welcome to Tennessee. And then there were a bunch like, we don't want no New Yorkers or Yankees. And then John Rich came into the comments because him and I, we're pretty friendly. And he comes in, he goes, no, he's one of the good ones. It's cool. Welcome to Tennessee. I'll show you around when you get here. And everyone's like, oh, okay, cool. Welcome to Tennessee. I was like, John, you saved me. These people are going to be coming up to us with pitchforks and torches. Like, get out of here, you New Yorkers. No, I will never vote Democrat. I can promise you that. I will never do it. So don't worry about me, New York, and your Tennessee.
We're glad you're here.
Yeah, absolutely. You've been
We're glad
super
to be
involved
here.
since you've been here. We appreciate all you've done
Thank you.
for the local party. And so thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this podcast with Shawn. What a great guy. Check out his social media. I'm going to warn you, if you go on and you start watching his videos, they're so funny. Make sure you have plenty of time because you're going to be stuck with them for a while because they're so good. They're so good. They're so good. So make sure you like and leave us a comment. We'd love to hear your feedback, and make sure you share this video with your friends. Thanks for joining us today.